The state Senate races didn't have the drama of a possible power shift, but they did feature massive campaigns against Senate Democratic leaders Tim Jennings and Michael Sanchez. As you know, Susana Martinez's top political advisor, Jay McCluskey, targeted both with his Reform New Mexico Now PAC. Jennings fell, Jim, but the theory seems to be that everyone else will fall into line if they see this kind of money, power lining up against them when they oppose the governor. Do you think that's going to resonate with people? Dan says that at this table a lot, too, as a matter of fact. Is that how these guys work? Are they going to be that afraid 2 years later?
I don't think so. I think that you're going to have senators that are more emboldened and at really saying that this kind of bullying almost is something that they're not willing to stand. I think that you're going to have less of an appetite for compromise, less of an appetite of reaching out and seeing what you can, how you can help. And I think Andy Nunes over in the House, we didn't really touch on this, is a great example. He was a Democrat who reached out and said, I agree with you on the driver's license repeal issue. And he carried that bill for several years. He was repaid by being, targeted because he wasn't a Republican. That's the message that's been sent. I think you've got Democratic senators that are going to say, we're going to try and do what we think is right and not this give and take.
Sure, absolutely. Gabe, it's interesting, talk about power vacuums. Let's start with the Jennings seat first. We've all hashed over why he got turned out. It's pretty easy to figure out when you look at his district, his makeup, the performance, everything. Right, it's pretty predictable. But the vacuum that now creates. What's your first thought there on the Tim Jennings situation?
Well, it was kind of the dynamic in terms of strategy. What we can predict, it's, there's been some names tossed around, Lopez, for example. What we do know is whoever is going to replace that is going to be much more liberal than what the governor's used to. So she's going to have a difficult time, as we've all been talking about. In terms of other kind of long-term dynamic, what I think you've done with bringing in all this outside money and really getting personal in a lot of these attacks is you've really galvanized the Democratic Party in this state. You've had a lot of moderate Democrats kind of go either way depending on some of these toss-up issues. I think what you've done now is really build some cohesiveness around party within the Democrat side, and I think that's going to be an issue that we look back as a bellwether moment. We've always talked a little bit behind the scenes, maybe our Democrats aren't as cohesive as some of us might like. Now we look at this dynamic, and I think they're going to rally behind this dynamic, and you're going to see some long-term implications from that.
Interesting point. Laura, it's interesting thinking about the Jennings-Pirtle race. Mr. Pirtle, how does it go, the math? Mr. Jennings had been in politics for a certain amount of
6 years.
Before?
When Pirtle was born. He'd already been in the Senate for 6 years. I find that amazing.
Right. It's a heck of a way to lose, though, when you think about it. But that's politics.
Yes,
that happens.
It does.
So for Mr. Pirtle, though, what can he expect? What kind of reception could he expect to have? Meaning,
he's going to be the new kid on the block.
Exactly.
Among 15.
He's you start at the bottom in the Senate. You got to work your way up. And I think even some of the senators that got in 4 years ago are now, gone. And sometimes, senators will come in very brash. I have a huge agenda. You learn very quickly that you don't have an agenda. You're part of a larger team, and you work within the structure.
And as we see on the map here, just how red that area is we've been discussing, it's really, nobody sees that flipping anytime soon in performance on that color.
One of the things, there will be a change in leadership. Obviously, two leaders were ousted. So Tim Jennings, obviously pro tem, and the whip. And so we'll see some changes, and it'll be interesting to see who emerges. But I think in terms of those committee assignments are pretty important too. Linda Lopez is head of rules. She has to approve all of the appointees that come through for the Martinez administration. If you remember back under Richardson, she knocked heads with Richardson too because of some of those appointments that she basically held up on. And so that's a tremendously powerful position. I think pro tem is not necessarily the most powerful. It's a figurehead position, but in terms of the strategy, the day-to-day, the really being able to get an agenda moving or not, I'm not sure it's the most powerful one, but it will be interesting to see what emerges. One thing I will say is that, of the 4 seats 4 years ago, I think you mentioned earlier, whether what's happened with the 2 seats will make some of these senators cower in 2 years. It'll be 4 years, remember, so it'll be 4 years before they run again. But it could be a lifetime in politics. But 4 years ago, we saw a change, I think, to a more progressive Senate. There were at least 4 seats that were elected. Those 4 seats currently are being held basically by progressive Democrats still. So we didn't see a major shift back to what had been in the past. What we saw was a couple of pickups that the Republicans got, but ultimately I still think it's still pretty left. And certainly for the Martinez administration's agenda, it's going to be a very left Senate.
Sure. Jamie, the Michael Sanchez race, David Chavez race certainly was one of the high-profile races we all follow. Let's start with the obvious. Mr. Sanchez is back, Senator Sanchez And I asked him during our election coverage live on Tuesday night just what his attitude was going to be, going into this next legislative session. You got to think there's something there that's got a bug at the least. I'm always curious, do you put all of that aside for the good of the state? How does this work in big time politics like this? It's difficult.
Right. Well, we were talking about how he was targeted so heavily, putting up David Chavez against him, and there was a real concerted effort to really make sure that Chavez was well funded, and Chavez didn't go on TV, but Sanchez did, and I think that really made a big difference in that race. I look back at the 2010 numbers. Susana Martinez won that district at 57.5%. And he won at 55%. So it tells me that perhaps her message out there, the same electorate that elected her, just really wasn't buying some of the things that they were charging him with. And some of the things that they were doing out there, is basically saying he was in favor of letting child abusers off and that kind of thing. I mean, it was really going a little far.
Sure.
And
in fact, why don't we peel back to Tuesday night? Let's listen to what he actually had to say on that very issue. I asked him about some of those things that were coming his way. Let's hear what he had to say. And all the work that has to go into that. What's your attitude going in? Are you inclined to be a little less cooperative on some things? Are you inclined to be forgiving about some other things? What's your thought at this point?
Well, it's the same philosophy I had when she was elected. We're willing to work if she's willing to work with us. However, we don't know what her agenda has been. I mean, we've been losing jobs. I think we lost 9,000 jobs this last month. I don't see any plan for the economy, for our businesses in the state of New Mexico, a water plan. I just don't know what her agenda is because it's just been filled with Jay McCluskey wanting certain things done so that he can use them in campaigns. So if she can come up with an agenda, I'm more than happy to sit down and work with her, and I hope she understands that it's working together and compromising to come up with good, sound policy for all of the people of the state of New Mexico, not just a few.
Senator Sanchez, thank you very much. Interesting stuff there, Jamie. Hearing him mention a political operative by name is fascinating to me. He doesn't have to do that. You know what I mean? It's sort of inside political baseball.
Pat Woods did it.
There you go, exactly. That sense of pushback. Again, where's it going to get him? How's that received in the roundhouse? It's a very big chess match going on here.
It remains to be seen. I think that hopefully the olive branch is coming out right after the election, and that bipartisan.
Who extends the branch first?
Well, it seems to me that it's going to have to come from the fourth floor.
Okay.
In this respect, I mean, come on, this is a race that they really were. It was so clear from day one that he was going to be the target, and $2.5 million or so was basically directed at him in some way, shape, or form. And with other side benefits, if you will, getting other people knocked off.
Sure.
So I think that that's going to be troublesome, and it does poison the well. And I think that New Mexicans as a whole, and my community in Valencia County is sort of waiting to see what's really how this is going to happen, how this is going to work to actually move New Mexico forward. And it's going to have to something's going to have to happen because. So far in the past couple of years, Governor Martinez really hasn't accomplished much through the legislature. Yeah, we have a balanced budget, understand that, and then that was kind of balanced before she got there. But the reality was that we have 2 more years left, and she has a re-elect. What are they going to accomplish in order to get, and that's going to be it's going to affect Hispanics as a whole, because here we recruit Hispanics to be in these leadership roles. Well, how are they going to win re-election?
Right.
They got to have results.
That's right.
We have to work harder than a lot of other.
Gabe, he also mentioned, Ms. Sanchez also mentioned that I don't remember the exact wording, but there has been nothing of a program of a sorts that he mentioned in his wording. It almost sounded like he was setting things up for 2 years hence, what Jamie was talking about. That there's not a record so far from his point of view that we're going to kind of come after this. Almost sounded like a warning across the bow in a bit of a way.
Right, and it's not really isolated to him. I mean, you've seen folks like Senator Keller. Language is a little bit different than what we're used to in terms of already setting the stage for what's likely to happen. So I think when you look at this dynamic, what you really have to envision is if the governor's not willing to compromise, what's left? I think we might be going back to the era of Governor Johnson, the veto era. I mean, that's literally all that's left to play.
Right.
If you're not able to build some compromise. Take a look at the driver's license issue. My back of the napkin kind of math suggests that the folks that you were talking about that are coming in, the newcomers, at least their stated position on that issue, they're not friendly to the governor on that one. So, something's going to have to change.
Sure.
And I think the governor is going to have to start thinking about, without any outcomes, without anything really to show to voters, is she going to be in
I
trouble?
might
And let me get James in here real quick, because for James, it seems to me for Democrats, if you make sure that in fact happens what Gabe just said, she gets nothing out of this session, it's beautifully teed up for the gubernatorial stuff later.
That's certainly possible. Yeah, but nonetheless, the governor is still incredibly popular. I mean, her favorability ratings in the high 60s. She's, if you get outside of the bubble that is the roundhouse to average voters, they still like the governor, and that's still something. Even if there's in 2014, if nothing is done, if there isn't education changes, if there isn't driver's license changes, you still have a candidate that's, for some reason, voters are really engaged by.
But is she more or less vulnerable at that point, not getting those things done that James pointing out?
Absolutely.
And from efforts of Democrats to prevent those things from
Right.
happening.
I mean, I think that the gubernatorial election begins now. I mean, we basically at this point start to pivot and think about that. I think everybody, not just us here.
Sure.
But sure. I mean, I think what James is pointing out is important. She's still very popular, but that I think signals that the Democrats really haven't coalesced behind a concerted effort to try to educate people about what has or has not happened under this administration.
I got a question for each of you, just a bit off subject, but not. Just a name from each of you. Who's going to run the Senate? Who do you think? Who's your choice right off the top of your head?
It's still going to be Michael Sanchez.
There you go. When I say run, you
Well,
can
he
pick a
runs the
round of
Senate.
names.
Well, he runs the Senate.
He and maybe some key legislative pro tem possibly. Who's
I mean,
gonna
I
be
know
there?
that Linda Lopez has been thrown around, but honestly, she's so effective in rules. I think she'd be great, but she's so effective in that role. I could see, several names: Ortiz y Pino being thrown at Campos, Cisneros.
Cisneros,
I could
yeah.
see, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard that name a lot too. Jamie, your thoughts on?
I would be surprised if Linda Lopez did it, because she's in a powerful position. But if you want to have a Hispanic woman up against a Hispanic woman, you might want to choose Linda Lopez.
Interesting.
That's my call.
Interesting. James, your thought on that?
I agree that Linda Lopez is a really strong choice. Another one that's noted. Peter Wirth is really well liked by many people on both sides of the aisle. Maybe the idea similar to the way Tim Jennings was in leadership because he was embraced by Senate Republicans. If Senate Republicans can coalesce around another Democrat, they could possibly do something similar. Not saying that Peter Wirth is necessarily that.
But is there a
guy,
price to
but-
pay for any Republican who would rally towards a Democrat at this point? I mean, you'd feel the wrath of.
Well, I think there'd be
You know.
more of a price to pay for any Democrat that
Okay.
rallies
Yeah,
behind a
absolutely.
pick that the
That's
Republicans have.
interesting.
I mean, the win number here, we're talking about 22.
Sure.
So with 17 Republicans, if they can hold, close ranks and hold that down, pick off five Democrats, which would have to be, a conservative coalition, they could get a different pro tem elected. I think it would be a very dysfunctional Senate in some ways,
Right.
but it would be very interesting.
Interesting for sure. In a moment, former New Mexico governor and Libertarian presidential candidate Gary Johnson.